welcome to the show. We're on Forza Motorsport 5 for today's challenge, and it is some reduced grip racing as somebody managed to spin having just set off from the start line. Yeah, one of the options in the multiplayer races, you can have a grip handicap. Basically, you take away up to 75% of the grip. So these cars have very little traction, very little braking, and not much turning. At the front, there a Datsun approaching turn 1 completely sideways, and everybody misjudged the braking point completely. Nobody got stopped at all for the first corner. There is now a melee off camera, as the cameraman has absolutely no idea what the hell to do with this particular moment. And then we wait, there's a car. Somebody has emerged from turn 1. Something has emerged sideways, and then some more cars. The leader is now promptly spun around in a circle. Some more cars are emerging from various places. Second place is trying manically to keep it under control and is now spun as well. There are more vehicles are now managing to get themselves out of the gravel trap, while the two cars at the front have had a spin around. Something else is spinning yet again. Yeah, in this opening lap, nobody quite knew there's a very vicious spin there from the blue. I'm not quite sure what caused. I guess maybe the curb must have caused that. Some cars are playing in the sand. There's another spinner. Quite a few cars running a bit wide. Yet nobody was really quite knew what to do on the opening few corners. Nobody quite expected what was to come. Amazingly, I came from the back of the field to second within sort of 3 corners. I had come out of it pretty well. That's probably the best start I've had in a race of Forza 5. Yeah, it was absolutely manic on this opening lap. And while it looks very undramatic, as these cars aren't going particularly fast, it's incredibly hard. You'd be amazed how difficult it is, as I promptly lose control of it over the sand trap. Thankfully, somebody came to my rescue, who also ran out of grip, ended up bumping me around and put me back on the road, pointing in the right direction, which was all very helpful. I lost a couple of places in my slight out braking moment, but yeah, nobody was quite sure where to brake into these corners for the first time. The hairpin here, people may have overshot. There's a Korean car going sideways into the corner. I don't think I've ever seen anybody end up in that gravel trap over there. I don't think it's ever been, I mean, sure, people outbrake themselves into the hairpin from time to time, but I don't think that gravel trap has ever been needed in a Forza 5 race before, because you don't normally outbrake yourself by as larger amounts. Whereas on here, if you try and brake at a normal pace, you're going to hit the barrier. But even trying to be cautious, you're still going to make mistakes when you're not quite sure what to be expecting. I had to sort of work my way back up through the field after a bit of a lag spike. Put me in a wall. And one thing you quickly realise when racing these is momentum is very, very important. You have got to keep up momentum through the corner. For example, there, the car in front was a fair distance ahead of me, but I carried sort of more speed through the previous corner, which meant as we started going uphill, I had a much better run, and the car in front couldn't do anything about it. You try and put down too much power, you're just going to sit there and spin your wheels constantly. Momentum is most definitely the important thing with this sort of racing. You've got to make sure you keep that momentum going. If you end up out wide through one corner, it can mess you up for the next long straight. And sure, in normal racing it'll mess you up for the next long straight, but this is a much more profound effect when you get something a little bit wrong, because every little mistake is amplified by quite a lot. The blue car there just couldn't quite, or tried to carry a bit more speed and then couldn't stop it. If you do make a mistake, there's not very much you can do about it. You can warn somebody that you're about to crash into the side of them. Nobody can do anything about it though. The blue car is floundering around on the infield, having outbraked himself a bit, as these two are coming around the final corner. Yeah, when you have outbraked yourself, there is this surprisingly long period of, I know I'm going to crash, there is nothing I can do about it, and I apologise if I'm going to hit somebody probably, but yeah, nobody can do anything about it. You've got to think almost quite far ahead in this sort of racing. It seems strange when you're watching this. It seems, oh yes, it's all very slow. I think we did get the cars up to about 80 miles an hour. These are completely stock Datsuns. We got them about 80 miles an hour down this start-finish straight. I love the body roll in it. I picked the Datsun just because it has the most wobbly suspension I think I've ever seen, which is quite amusing. Yeah, 80 miles an hour is about the fastest we ever got it. This first corner, you were taking it about 20 or 30. You'd want to try and get it slowed down to that if you wanted to get around the first corner. It is completely almost counterintuitive in some ways. The racing was quite good fun though. I have to say, there was plenty of close racing going on. Again at the hairpin, and the Blue Datsun outbraked himself just a little bit. It only takes sort of small margin. There's a very tiny margin of error. If you brake too early into a corner, and it can only be if it's a fraction too early, you're going to slow down so much that you lose a load of momentum and very slow around the corner. You brake a fraction too late, and you're going to not make the corner at all and go and play in some sand somewhere. There is a very, very little margin for error in this particular. A few people in the lobby were saying they haven't concentrated more on a race than this one, and we're doing 20, 30, 40 miles an hour through most of the corners, but there is absolutely no room for error. A tiny mistake is going to cause you real problems. So yeah, you've got to really make sure you position your car. Like I've made a bit of an error, outbrake myself a little bit too much. Luckily I can slow myself down for this next corner, better than the two cars in front that have gone wide, but it'd be very easy for me to end up out of position for one corner, and then you end up out of position for the next one, and then you lose all of that momentum, and suddenly a whole stream of cars will come back past you. I got away with it that time, not really ideal. The line that I ended up there, I got away with it as the two cars in front made bigger mistakes further down the road. There were many things to be aware of in this one. And it's good to see that the race was fairly. There's a little bit of lag going on, which is it carried us all throughout the evening. There's a bit of lag, which is a bit of a shame. But these are the top three. They're all just about within camera shot. Cars were pretty close. There were some dangers to be aware of. Grass is apparently very dangerous to a slidey Datsun. I don't know why it's particularly. That's a fairly normal braking zone. Just dipped a wheel on the grass, and the beige Datsun almost went around. It was well saved to keep it from going around. But yeah, the white car in front is complete. This was a horrible section of corners. I mean, this is a pretty nasty section of corners for cars at the best of time. Very tight, very slow, particular part. But when you have very little grip and it's downhill, and you're kind of braking in there, lots of cars were running wide into the sort of the second corner, second part of that chicane. At the front it would be the white and blue Datsun that you can just see crossing the line up there. That would take the victory. These two would have a bit of a drag race out of the final corner. Again, it was very important to get a good run out of that final turn, to make sure you have the grip, if you like, or get the traction to get down the start-finish straight. For this, you've got to be very gentle with the accelerator trigger as well. While these cars, yes, don't have too much power, because there is no grip, they will spin the wheels up very. Daniel will be rubbish at this. You've got to be very careful with absolutely everything, because the two more cars jump the chicane. Yeah, this final corner though would see some interesting last lap action. Again, this is what I was talking about, making sure you get the best run out of it, getting the best traction. The blue car is behind the red vehicle as they leave this final corner, and you would think that is the way that they're going to stay, having completely equal cars. But I guess the driver of the blue vehicle just got better traction, put the power down a bit better than the red car, and look at the size of the gap by the time they get to the finish line. That's the difference that it can make if you can get just that bit better traction, be a bit more careful on the throttle, and use the most of it. It posed an interesting problem. You had to drive in an interesting way and off the start line for this second race. You can see the difference it makes if you get a good or bad start. These are absolutely identical cars. Sure, when we do a versus the community race, yeah, some cars have quick starts, some cars don't have quick starts. But if everybody's driving exactly the same vehicles, it's fairly similar. But with this racing, there are such huge differences involved. If you get between a good launch and a bad launch, I got a terrible launch in this second race. Yeah, it's really very noticeable. Now, having done the first round, people were a bit more cautious into turn one, and in general, they got through the first corner with less crashing. We didn't all pile into the wall at turn one this time anyway. There was a little bit of bumping, and a few people ended up out a little bit wide. There was some almighty lag problem. It was my lag that was going on. I don't know what was going on with my internet. It was unhappy with me in this particular race. But towards the front, things were fairly clean. You know, there's inevitably going to be bumping as people aren't quite sure where to be braking with the cars. And as I said, if you do make a mistake, you can't you can't stop. Can't stop your car. You can't change direction quick enough necessarily to avoid the vehicles in front. The car we're following at the moment, trying to go around the outside of somebody, just ends up out a little bit too wide, and then this whole thing of momentum, he's ended up out too wide and doesn't have a particularly good run onto the bridge, and that's going to compromise you all the way down the bridge. And yeah, it is very, very important, all of this. At the front, and it was a three-way tussle coming up towards turn 1, and you know things are close when the replay camera can't even show you the car. That was really, really close between them two. Sure enough, into turn 1, the leader got a little bit carried away. Second and third also may have overdone it a little bit as they bounced off the wall, and the car that was in fourth takes the corner lovely and inherits the lead. Yeah, pushing it a little bit too hard. Of course, when you're racing closely with other cars, you're always tempted just to brake that little bit later. And in here, with these, you just can't get away with it. You can't do it. And now this group from second back was somewhat crowded as we go 3 wide. I was trying to make it 4 wide at one point. There we go. Trying to fit almost 4 Datsuns into the tunnel. That is an interesting prospect. Again, it's 3 wide into next corner. Car on the outside sort of gives up on that one. There's me sliding around trying to get to the inside as a couple cars are running out a little bit wide on here. And it's kind of like an interesting thing where you'll think that you're doing really well, you're up the inside of somebody, and you think you're gonna, or you think you've got a position, or you think you've got a good line through a corner, but by taking a good line through the first corner, if you like, you end up slowing yourself down as you come on to this straight, for example. So the car in front here, the blue car, had a poor run onto this straight. I had a poor run onto this straight as well. So you've really got an awful lot to think about, despite the fact you're not going very quickly. There is an awful lot to deal with these cars. This next sort of fast chicane is absolutely horrible when you have there's no grip, so you've got to be very, very careful through here. And then you see my my lag problems. Yeah, my car may have got slightly flung at the wall, and I apologise to the blue Datsun that I took out. Yeah, things were about to go very badly wrong for my particular race. These two guys were having a good battle for the first couple of laps as they come through the horrible chicane. Unfortunately, I would slightly ruin this one with one of the more bizarre accidents I've seen. My car lags up, lags down, and then fires a Datsun into space. I think we have a new height record for a crash. Yeah, I mean that's I mean, I didn't have damage on, so the car could still keep going. Oh, his car could. I love this camera angle of it. Yeah, I don't know quite what's going on. I feel sorry for the poor blue Datsun that I just launched. Yeah, car goes up, car goes down, and everything's just vanished in front of this guy. There was a bit of an accident further up ahead as well, and his car makes it through. Yeah, that was interesting lag. I would I would lag out of this game. It would crash. I don't know what the hell was going on with that. My internet's normally pretty good, so yeah, that got a little bit unhappy. My horrible lag spikes early on did slightly ruin the race a little bit. Spread the field out especially with me catapulting cars around. Yeah, not quite ideal. Wasn't as much overtaking in this particular race. It was also a little bit of a shorter race after the first one took so damn long. Yeah, it was still interesting. It certainly is a challenge with this blue Datsun taking the victory. There's my car just frozen in place. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, it was certainly an interesting challenge though. This track perhaps a little bit nicer than Catalonia in some respects. Again, it'd be the final corner where things would get interesting for a couple of cars. The Datsun that I launched did manage to work his way back through the field quite well. Had to go on the final lap up the inside on the last corner, but just ran a little bit too wide, and the cutback seems to work pretty damn well for this red vehicle to keep the position. Yeah, overtaking is quite hard. If the car in front hasn't made a mistake and fallen off the road, overtaking was pretty damn difficult. In the sort of doing an out-braking manoeuvre was very hard when you're working with such tiny margins of error. For a third race, I thought we'd have a bit of fun and go to Bathurst, and I'd mix the cars up with a front-wheel drive Volkswagen Golf. Now, there isn't an equivalent to Fujimi Kaido. I think we did this at Fujimi before, and it was crazy with such difficult terrain, if you like, such steep hill climbs and then descents as well. we don't really have an equivalent on Forza 5. But I figured this was as good as we were going to get, really, and I do quite like Bathurst, so we thought we'd give it a go. On this this first kind of straight, yes, it is slightly uphill, but there's not too many problems, too many issues for the cars. It's not too steep for a hill, and we've managed to get around the first turn relatively safe. Again, by this time we were starting to sort of get the hang of what these cars were like. There was a little bit of bumping in turn one, but in general, people were getting that you have to brake so much earlier than you were kind of expecting to begin with. And coming up towards the second corner was where I knew things were going to get interesting. This is a pretty quick corner, normally for cars. It's a pretty scary corner, and a few cars were having the back end of these vehicles step out on them if they weren't too careful. The car we're following just ran a little bit deep through the corner. Something's gone for a bit of a pirouette there. Then this is where things get tricky. If you've had a bad second corner, you are in a hell of a lot of trouble. Now we start going up a steep hill, and these cars have very little grip. So if you haven't got that momentum going forward, you just really struggle to actually get up this bit of hill. As you can see, my car, I started well down the back of the field and managed to avoid most of the chaos through that second corner, and me and I think there's a silver car following me could fly past all of these vehicles that had slightly bumped the wall, lost all the momentum, and now couldn't get the cars going again. They were just stuck trying to climb up this hill, and of course it's going to get worse and worse as this particular bit of track gets steeper and steeper. I was fine with it. I got through the corner absolutely fine, and I was making up loads of positions at this point, carrying plenty of momentum. There was a sort of a greeny yellow car that was coming with me, and as the cars up ahead were struggling, or some of them were struggling with some momentum, the two of us just kept it going. You've got to be so unbelievably delicate with the throttle on this one. The minute the car starts bursting into wheel spin, you're in trouble. You can't have the car spinning its wheels. The minute you start losing traction, you're going to struggle on such a steep hill. That's why me and the yellow car that's followed me, we did well. We made up, I think, about 5-6 positions through there just by taking a nice sort of clean line through that second corner, making the most of it, and we got all the way up the hill without any issues. One thing, even at this stage, it was quite easy to get carried away with some of the corners, to think, oh, I'm going slow enough, it'll be fine, to turn in, and you just instinctively think, yeah, it'll be alright. This corner here is a nasty one, and the Golf is not going to make that turn particularly. Yeah, normally that corner, certainly in these cars, is not going to be too much. Maybe a tiny dab on the brakes, they might do it flat out, but not when you got the grip taken away. Not going to make it through there. And then we come down the hill. The other side is equally scary. Yeah, trying to get the cars stopped and turned in down here is not so much fun as this one gets a little bit carried away, bumps off the walls, gets very lucky. I was expecting to see a few cars end up in those tyre bundles. Don't think anybody did. Yeah, the red car there really did get away with that one. It got sort of spun around, but didn't get off too badly. I had a very big sideways moment coming over. Well, that was not much fun. That wasn't really ideal. This Falcon tyre bundle down here, I think almost everything bumped into it. Nobody could quite get it. I was trying my best to get my car stopped. But yeah, you just end up bumping that wall. As silver cars ended up in it. Another one's hit it. Yeah, lots of cars ended up, just couldn't get the vehicle stopped in time. Also, there's a slight, sorry, I can speak. There was a slight sort of kink coming onto that straight. You don't think about it normally, but in these cars, you really have to. And things went a bit wrong for me, as I ended up in a tank slapper, and with such little grip, couldn't get it back together again, and then we promptly rolled over. Yeah, not ideal. There was a tiny bit of lag at a really bad time, as I was sort of leaving the grass, trying to come back onto the tarmac. And once I got it in the tank slapper, nothing I could do could stop it, and it was sort of inevitable. We were going to end up on our roof. I did get it going again, but yeah, not really ideal. At the front, we're coming up to the chase, which is a scary corner. At most of this track's blooming scary, but at the best of times. But with these, the leader managed to make it around the chase first time, and the cars behind also did a good job. But on the chicane, the white car just outbraked himself a tiny bit. There's a red car, the third place car did a hell of a lot worse. Ended up well out of camera shot. Yeah, and there's some tough corners to make, especially for the leader, who has no idea quite where they're going to need to stop for that corner. Of course, second place and third place should be able to judge a little better. Yeah, third vanished out of shot, but yeah, it's much easier for the car following in this case. Anyway, despite a better drive out of the final corner, the white car couldn't get the lead back, and the victory would go to the red Golf. Further back, things would be quite interesting coming into the chicane. A little bit of lag going on in the replay. Somebody didn't quite make the chase, and somebody didn't get stopped for the chicane, managing to go both sides of this silver Golf. Yeah, that's that's a scary sight when you see the cars coming, because once you're out on the gravel, you're not going to do it. You can't stop that car. It's pretty much gone. There's very little that they could do about that one. But luckily for this silver Golf, he got away with it. And then we find one of the interesting dangers of this Bathurst circuit. The leaders seem to get around this final corner okay. The guy in fourth stamped on his brakes again, perhaps a little bit assisted by the grass in this time, and got it sideways and almost spun it into the final corner. And then there's this group of vehicles behind that were all pretty close together on track and all do almost exactly the same thing. Jump on the brakes, and suddenly the back end of the cars absolutely give up. The green and yellow car we're following at the moment doesn't quite have it to the same extent, but everybody was having problems in the braking zone. I'm not sure quite what it was. I mean, it is a fairly steep downhill section, but I don't think it's the worst sort of bit for braking. So maybe it's quite bumpy and you don't normally notice it so much, but when you take the grip away it causes problems. I'm not sure, but either way, almost everybody ended up in the sand trap there. Just couldn't get the cars stopped. I don't think the order changed too much as they were trying to quickly escape the sand trap. Maybe swap positions around a little bit. Yeah, it was a horrible corner even further back. Another car under braking and back ends just lets go. I managed to get around it okay. I had a little bit of a slidey moment. My car made it, but a load of vehicles ended up in there. I'm not sure. I think it's probably more luck as to who made it through there. And further back with the cars that got stuck, well, they figured out that apparently if you reverse, you have a lot more traction than if you go forward. These cars just weren't moving. I think they were doing maybe 1 mile an hour trying to get up this hill, and eventually decided to try and reverse. And somehow that works. I don't know. I don't know why that. Why is the car now moving? It looks very silly, but I don't. Why is the car moving now? Maybe gear ratio slightly better? Possibly having it in reverse? I don't know. Either way, it did sort of work, and then we had a race in reverse trying to get up the hill. I accidentally forgot to put collisions as always on, so that's why there are ghost cars. My bad on that front. Yeah, for some reason, the reversing technique actually, I mean, ideally, because you don't want to be having to go in reverse. It's much quicker if you've got a good line through the second corner and you can carry the momentum up as you saw at the start. That's the way you want to do it. But if you did get it stuck, you could get it out of being stuck by using reverse. Yeah, that doesn't make a huge amount of sense to me, but it's what happens. In the end, it was all pretty damn good fun. There was quite a lot of close racing in the first one. My lag may have slightly messed up the second one. We did send a Datsun to orbit almost, so that's a thing. Yeah, racing with reduced grip. It's a lot tougher than you think. These races look quite slow, but it requires a hell of a lot of concentration. As I said, tiny mistakes will amplify into very big accidents if you aren't too careful. But yeah, I definitely recommend you give it a go. Get a group of people together and go racing with a lot less grip than normal. There will be all sorts of interesting fun and probably many crashes. However, that is it for this video, guys. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.